us as black women, Paige reminds me a lot of you. Like, you say you're not really about me. And she knows how her privilege has gotten her to that point. And also, like, she's good at basketball, obviously. But, like, she understands her privilege and like, pushes her over the top in a sense. It reminds me a lot of you. And I mean, that's a compliment.
A'ja Wilson has been vocal about privilege in the WNBA, specifically calling out players like Caitlin Clark and Paige Beuckers. But here's the twist. Wilson's comments come across as hypocritical when you consider her own background of privilege. While she's lecturing others about race and privilege, it's time we take a closer look at her own story and the narrative she's pushing. Let's dive into why A'ja Wilson's remarks feel like a double standard and why players like Caitlin Clark deserve more credit for their success. A'ja Wilson's recent comments about privilege, particularly aimed at players like Caitlin Clark and Paige Beuckers, have sparked quite a conversation.
Everything A'ja Wilson is saying is I probably tend to think it wasn't even on accident. Knew she was being recorded, knew it would get out there.
Wilson mentioned how Bueckers and Clark have benefited from privilege, especially in terms of race, saying she knows how her privilege has guided her to that point, and obviously she's good at basketball.
Us as black women, Paige reminds me a lot of you. Like, you say you're not really about me. And she knows how her privilege has gotten her to that point. And also, like, she's good at basketball, obviously. But, like, she understands her privilege and like, pushes her over the top in a sense. It reminds me a lot of you. And I mean, that's a compliment.
While Wilson acknowledged their talent, she implied that their rise to fame has been smoothed by privilege, which seems ironic when you consider Wilson's own privileged background. Wilson is a product of private education, with access to elite resources that helped her develop her skills from a young age. She attended a private school and had the benefit of a strong support system, a luxury that many players in the WNBA didn't have. There's no question that she's worked hard to get where she is, but to position herself as someone who had to overcome insurmountable obstacles while lecturing others on privilege feels disingenuous.
The sense of entitlement and the sour, bad, nasty attitudes that many of these players are exhibiting, I think exactly is one of the reasons why for the past 20 some odd years, nobody has cared about this league, why there is certainly an antipathy towards it.
The racial dynamics in sports are complex and worthy of discussion, but Wilson's framing makes it seem like she's ignoring her own advantages while trying to play the victim. Now contrast that with Caitlin Clark, who's emerged as one of the most exciting and hardworking players the WNBA has seen in years. Clark's rise hasn't been because of some invisible hand of privilege. It's been because of her sheer talent and relentless drive. She's smashing records, breaking barriers, and doing it all without leaning on a narrative of advantage. Clark's focus has always been on her game and her performance. She's not out there positioning herself as someone who's benefited from privilege or using social commentary to explain her success. It's her dedication, not a handout, that has gotten her to the top of the WNBA. But here's where things get even more interesting: endorsements and shoe deals. Recently, A'ja Wilson landed a signature shoe deal with Nike, something many athletes dream of. But let's ask the tough question: was Wilson the right choice? If Nike were looking for the most marketable player, the most deserving candidate, Caitlin Clark would have been the obvious choice. She has the fan base, the game-changing talent, and the stats to back it all up. So why did Nike go with Wilson? Some speculate that it was more about aligning with a narrative than rewarding the player who's truly making waves in the league.
A'ja Wilson has a signature shoe and logo with Nike. No one's gonna buy her shoe, no one cares, but Nike's bending over backwards trying to please A'ja Wilson and Don Staley and the whole BLM crowd. We gotta promote A'ja first.
Caitlin Clark's popularity is undeniable. Her games are drawing record-breaking viewership, her social media presence is through the roof, and fans are flocking to support her wherever she goes. In contrast, Wilson, despite her accomplishments, hasn't been able to command the same level of attention. And yet, Nike chose Wilson for the shoe deal, overlooking the player who is quite literally bringing more eyes to the WNBA than ever before. It's hard not to see this as a strategic choice to back a player who fits a certain narrative rather than the one who is actually transforming the league. But let's speculate for a moment. What if Caitlin Clark's rise and success are making people in the WNBA uncomfortable? What if her dominance on the court, combined with her massive popularity, is starting to overshadow players like A'ja Wilson, whose star power might be fading in comparison? Is it possible that Wilson's comments about privilege are an attempt to regain control of the narrative, to shift the focus back to herself as a leader in the league?
And so there's a mindset that A'ja has to adopt to justify getting treatment she knows she doesn't deserve.
By framing the conversation around race and privilege, Wilson may be trying to reposition herself as the voice of the WNBA, despite the fact that Clark is doing more to elevate the game. And let's not forget the racial undertones in this conversation. By making privilege a focal point, Wilson is drawing a clear line between herself and Clark, implying that Clark's success is somehow less deserved because of her background. But if we really break it down, it's Clark who's had to fight for everything she's achieved. While Wilson had the benefit of private schooling and a strong support network, Clark's success has come purely from her on-court excellence and relentless work ethic. So who's really benefiting from privilege here? The controversy surrounding Wilson's comments doesn't stop at her background or her endorsements. There's another layer to this, the way fans and media are reacting. While Clark's fan base continues to grow, Wilson's influence seems to be waning. Look at the viewership numbers. Look at the jersey sales. It's Caitlin Clark who is driving the WNBA's growth right now, not Wilson. And yet, the league and brands like Nike continue to push Wilson as the face of the WNBA. Is it because they're afraid to embrace Clark's growing influence? Are they reluctant to shift the spotlight onto the player who is, by all metrics, the more marketable and impactful figure? This brings us to another question. Is the WNBA itself holding Caitlin Clark back? While she continues to break records and draw attention to the league, could the powers that be downplaying her achievements to avoid upsetting the balance of established stars like Wilson? If the league were truly about elevating the best and brightest, Caitlin Clark would already be the face of the WNBA. Instead, it feels like there's a reluctance to fully embrace her rise. Could Wilson's comments be a reflection of this underlying tension within the league, where newer, younger stars like Clark threaten to disrupt the established order? This entire situation feels like a brewing storm, with Caitlin Clark at the center. While A'ja Wilson tries to control the narrative, Clark's undeniable talent and appeal are breaking through, whether the league likes it or not. If Wilson and others continue to push this idea of privilege, it could backfire, making them seem out of touch with the very fans and viewers the WNBA desperately needs. Meanwhile, Clark's star is only going to continue rising, and the question becomes, how long can the WNBA and players like Wilson ignore the real face of their future? A'ja Wilson's comments have opened a conversation about privilege, but the bigger question is, who is really benefiting from it? Caitlin Clark is breaking records and bringing in fans like never before. Yet it seems like the WNBA is hesitant to fully embrace her rise. Could Wilson's attempts to steer the narrative backfire, making her seem out of touch with where the league is headed? One thing's for sure, this battle for the spotlight is far from over, and the next chapter could change the face of the WNBA forever. Stay tuned.
Those guys, they're the racists, when really, y'all are the racists.
You got me down again.
In the wake of Caitlin Clark's playoff exit, a new scandal is shaking up the WNBA. Alyssa Thomas has been suspended following accusations of a racially motivated assault on Clark during a heated playoff game. This incident has sparked widespread debate, not only over player safety, but also over deeper issues of race within the league. Thomas claims that racial abuse from Clark's fan base has contributed to the ongoing tension, but her actions during the game are raising even more eyebrows. Let's dive into the story. In a pivotal playoff matchup between the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun, emotions were already running high. Clark, fresh off a historic rookie season, was looking to cement her place as one of the WNBA's biggest stars. Meanwhile, Alyssa Thomas, a veteran of the league, was eager to lead the Sun to victory. What should have been a competitive, hard-fought game turned controversial in an instant when a physical altercation broke out. During the game, Thomas was accused of a deliberate and aggressive move toward Clark, which many labeled as a racist assault. The action resulted in an immediate uproar among fans and analysts alike. The Fever were eliminated from the playoffs, but the real story emerging from the game was the alleged racial undertone of Thomas's actions. As details emerged, WNBA officials moved quickly, suspending Alyssa Thomas. The decision was met with mixed reactions from the public. Some praised the WNBA for taking a strong stand against any behavior that could be construed as racially motivated. Others questioned the severity of the punishment, suggesting it was a hasty decision made under public pressure without full evidence. What makes this story even more complicated is that Thomas didn't just face punishment on the court. During the post-game interview, Thomas did not shy away from addressing the issue. Instead of expressing regret or reflecting on her performance, she shifted the focus to the treatment she received from fans. According to Thomas, she had been subjected to racial abuse throughout the series, particularly from Clark's fan base, which she accused of being racist.
It's unacceptable, honestly. And there's no place for it. And we've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media, and there's no place for it. You know, we come to play basketball for our job and it's fun, but we don't want to go to work every day and have social media blown up over things like that. It's uncalled for, and something needs to be done, whether it's, you know, them checking their fans or this league checking. There's no time for it anymore.
Thomas's comments lit a firestorm in the media. In her post-game interview, she claimed that throughout her 11-year career, she had never experienced such racially charged abuse until this season. She directly pointed the finger at Clark's supporters, alleging that their admiration for the star player was laced with racial biases.
I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base.
Her words sparked a larger conversation about race and fandom in the WNBA. Fans and analysts alike were left wondering, is there a deeper racial tension brewing in the WNBA? Or was this simply a desperate deflection from a player trying to shift attention away from her playoff performance? This isn't the first time that Clark and Thomas have been at odds. Earlier in the season, during a regular season matchup, tensions boiled over between the two when Thomas set a hard screen that sent Clark to the floor. Though Thomas was penalized for the play, the incident added fuel to an already simmering rivalry. Clark, however, has largely stayed out of the fray. She has not responded directly to Thomas's claims or engaged in the controversy surrounding their previous encounters. Instead, she has focused on her game, letting her historic rookie season speak for itself. This has only further endeared her to her growing fan base, which includes a mix of traditional WNBA fans and newcomers drawn to her record-breaking performances. One of the most intriguing aspects of this story is the media's role in shaping public perception. Some sports pundits have accused the media of fanning the flames by amplifying Thomas's accusations without sufficient evidence.
Instagram and Twitter, these are choices we make. There's an easy way. The league doesn't have to get involved. The Indiana Fever don't have to do something to get you away from social media. Put your phone down. Don't download the apps. Don't engage.
Others argue that these conversations are long overdue, as they bring to light the challenges that Black athletes continue to face in a predominantly white-dominated fan culture. Critics of the media's handling of the situation point out that while Clark has received overwhelming praise and attention for her on-court accomplishments, there has been relatively little coverage of how race factors into her rising stardom.
Caitlin Clark is Kunta Clark. She's the actual slave that everybody else is exploiting for their benefit. Angel Reese included at the top of that list. Now Alyssa Thomas jumps in and says, let me get my piece.
This has led to further conversations about whether the WNBA, and by extension, its media partners, are doing enough to address the racial dynamics at play within the league. The suspension of Alyssa Thomas and the racial allegations have put the WNBA in a difficult position. The league must now address multiple issues: the integrity of the game, the safety of its players, and the deeper racial tensions that have been brought to the surface. With Clark out of the playoffs and Thomas suspended, the WNBA will need to navigate the fallout carefully to avoid alienating fans on either side of the debate. Moving forward, the league may need to reassess how it handles these types of incidents. Are suspensions enough, or should there be further investigations into the broader claims of racial abuse made by Thomas? And how can the WNBA foster a more inclusive environment for all its players and fans? While this story is still unfolding, it's clear that the rivalry between Caitlin Clark and Alyssa Thomas has become symbolic of larger issues within the WNBA. Their on-court clashes and off-court drama have exposed divisions within the fan base and raised questions about how race, gender, and power dynamics intersect in women's professional sports. Clark's rookie season may have ended on a sour note with the Fever's playoff exit, but her legacy is far from complete. As for Alyssa Thomas, her future in the league remains uncertain. Will she be able to recover from this scandal, or will this suspension mark a turning point in her career? Regardless of what happens next, the impact of this incident will be felt for years to come. Both Clark and Thomas are incredibly talented athletes who have helped to raise the profile of the WNBA. But as this situation proves, talent alone is not enough to navigate the complexities of fame, race, and public perception in today's world. The suspension of Alyssa Thomas for a racially charged altercation with Caitlin Clark is more than just a sports story. It's a cultural moment. It highlights the racial dynamics at play within the WNBA and forces fans and players alike to confront uncomfortable truths about fandom, privilege, and representation in women's sports. As the WNBA grapples with these issues, one thing is clear. This controversy is far from over. In the end, both Caitlin Clark and Alyssa Thomas will continue to play key roles in shaping the future of the WNBA. How the league handles their rivalry and the underlying tensions will be a defining moment not only for women's basketball, but for sports as a whole.
If Caitlin Clark is the quote-unquote savior, if she's the golden girl, milk it. A'ja Wilson is the superstar in the NBA, in the WNBA. She's a two-time champion. This girl is legit. She's the real deal. And those kind of endorsements and all of that stuff ain't come her way.
You got me down again.
Is the WNBA's marketing strategy pushing the league toward a controversial path? The rising tension between Alyssa Thomas and Caitlin Clark has become more than just a rivalry on the court. This feud is revealing a potential bias within the league itself. Are WNBA veterans like Thomas being sidelined to make room for the new face of the league, Caitlin Clark? Let's dive into whether the WNBA is guilty of playing favorites with their stars. Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever's rookie sensation, has captured the attention of sports fans everywhere. From breaking records to leading her team to the playoffs, Clark has cemented herself as one of the biggest names in women's basketball. Her rise has been meteoric, and with her dominance on the court, she has become a marketing darling for the WNBA. However, not everyone is celebrating her stardom. Alyssa Thomas, a veteran player for the Connecticut Sun, has made headlines for calling out what she believes is favoritism within the league, particularly the way it promotes certain athletes over others. Thomas's frustrations reached a boiling point after a playoff loss, where instead of addressing her performance, she accused Clark's fans of being racially motivated in their support of the rookie.
You know, we come to play basketball for our job and it's fun, but we don't want to go to work every day and have social media blown up over things like that. It's uncalled for, and something needs to be done, whether it's, you know, them checking their fans or this league checking. There's no time for it anymore.
The rivalry between Clark and Thomas goes beyond the competition between two athletes. It's become a symbol of a larger issue within the WNBA, how the league chooses to promote its stars. The WNBA has long prided itself on diversity, inclusion, and equity, but some players and fans are questioning whether those values still hold when it comes to their marketing strategy. Clark's rapid rise to stardom, while well-earned, has left some wondering whether the WNBA is pushing her to the front at the expense of veteran players like Thomas. While Clark is undeniably talented, Thomas and other veteran stars like Angel Reese feel the league has been disproportionately focused on marketing Clark, a young white athlete, as the new face of the WNBA, while sidelining the contributions of black players who have long carried the league. Alyssa Thomas' frustration isn't just about race, it's also about recognition. Thomas is a two-time All-Star who has consistently been one of the league's best players. Despite her achievements, she feels overlooked, particularly when compared to the attention Clark has received. Her accusations of racism might have been a knee-jerk reaction, but they stem from a deeper critique of how the WNBA markets its players and who it chooses to promote as the face of the league. In a post-game interview, Thomas stated, "I've never experienced the kind of backlash from fans that I have this season," pointing fingers at Clark's supporters and implying that their treatment of her was racially motivated.
I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. It's unacceptable, honestly. And yeah, there's no place for it. And we've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media, and there's no place for it.
While she didn't provide evidence of the alleged racism, her comments raised questions about whether the WNBA is truly committed to its message of equality or if it's more interested in boosting ratings with marketable stars. The WNBA has struggled with its marketability for years, and the arrival of Caitlin Clark has offered a unique opportunity to bring the league into the spotlight. Clark's popularity has spiked ratings, brought in new fans, and boosted attendance at games. But as the WNBA capitalizes on her marketability, it runs the risk of alienating longtime players who feel they're not getting the recognition they deserve. Thomas isn't the only one who feels sidelined. Players like Angel Reese have also expressed frustration that the league seems to be prioritizing certain athletes while ignoring others. The WNBA has always marketed itself as a progressive league, but the tension between Clark's meteoric rise and Thomas's frustrations highlight a contradiction. Can the league maintain its commitment to equity while promoting one player as the face of the WNBA? This growing divide between players could have long-term consequences for the WNBA. If veterans like Thomas and Reese feel that they're being unfairly overshadowed by younger stars like Clark, it could create friction within teams and among fans. In her post-game comments, Thomas didn't just criticize Clark's fans. She criticized the way the league as a whole has handled the promotion of its stars. The WNBA needs to strike a balance between marketing its new talent and giving credit to the players who have built the league. If it fails to do so, the accusations of favoritism will only grow louder. Thomas's comments might be the first crack in a deeper issue that the WNBA needs to address if it wants to maintain its integrity. Caitlin Clark's rise to fame has been nothing short of spectacular, but it has also placed her in a difficult position. While she hasn't actively sought to be the league's poster child, her success on the court and marketability on it have naturally drawn attention. Clark's ability to stay focused on her game, despite the controversies swirling around her, is commendable, but it also raises the question, is the WNBA placing too much pressure on her ability to carry the league? Clark's quiet professionalism in the face of criticism has won her even more fans, but the WNBA needs to be cautious. By elevating her as the face of the league so early in her career, they risk creating a divide between her and her fellow players who feel they've been unfairly sidelined. The WNBA is at a critical point in its history. The rise of Caitlin Clark has brought new fans, increased ratings, and renewed interest in the league. But Alyssa Thomas's frustrations have exposed the potential bias in how the WNBA promotes its athletes. Is the league willing to sacrifice its values of diversity and equity for marketability? Or can it find a way to balance the two? As the WNBA continues to grow, it will need to navigate these challenges carefully. Players like Thomas and Reese deserve recognition for their contributions to the league, and fans deserve to see all of the WNBA's talent celebrated, not just one rising star. The rivalry between Alyssa Thomas and Caitlin Clark is more than just a personal feud. It's a reflection of deeper issues within the WNBA. As the league grapples with how to promote its players and maintain its values, it must ensure that all athletes feel valued and respected. If the WNBA fails to address these concerns, it risks alienating its players and dividing its fan base. The question now is, Will the WNBA continue to play favorites, or will it find a way to balance the old guard with the new?
It's going to be nice, though. I think getting out of the spotlight and just getting to live my life and do things that I want to do, and not have to sit and I love talking to all of you, but it's going to be nice to not have to sit in front of a microphone, multiple times a week. I really appreciate all of you, but it will be nice to kind of get away and relax for a little bit. And I appreciate everything you all do as well, so I thank you.
You got me down again.
Caitlin Clark's potential departure from the WNBA to play in Europe has shocked fans and analysts alike. While her frustration with the league's physicality and officiating has been well documented, a deeper factor may be at play: the rising racial tensions within the league, specifically tied to Alyssa Thomas's recent accusations. Could this racial controversy be the final push for Clark to explore opportunities overseas? Clark's rookie season was undeniably electric, with her breaking records, lifting the Indiana Fever out of irrelevance, and propelling the WNBA into the spotlight. However, this meteoric rise came at a cost. From facing brutal physical defense to controversial no-calls, like Dijanai Carrington's infamous eye poke, Clark has felt unprotected by the league's officiating. "I feel like I'm getting hammered, and opponents get away with things that other players don't," she said in an interview after the Fever's heartbreaking playoff exit.
Yeah, I think just being competitive is who I am. It's what I've done my whole career. I think at times there's ways I can probably channel it a little bit better, but that's just basketball at the end of the day. That's never gonna change. I'm never gonna lose that. I feel like I'm getting hammered. I don't know. I appreciate Christy getting the tech too.
While the physical toll alone was draining, it's becoming evident that the environment in the WNBA, beyond the court, has been a growing source of frustration for Clark. And nothing exemplifies this more than the recent racial controversy stirred by Alyssa Thomas. After the Fever's playoff elimination, Alyssa Thomas took the stage not to discuss her team's win, but to accuse Caitlin Clark's fan base of racism. Thomas claimed that in her 11-year career, she had never experienced such vitriol, implying that Clark's sudden rise to stardom is somehow tied to racial bias.
Honestly, it's been a lot of nonsense. I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. We had her face on a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable, honestly. And there's no place for it. And
Thomas stated, indirectly linking Clark's popularity to her predominantly white fan base. This wasn't just a comment on trolls or online hate. It was an accusation that essentially targeted the league's new fan base, many of whom had started watching because of Clark's presence. Thomas painted a picture that Clark's success and the attention she received were products of race rather than talent. For Clark, this must have felt like the ultimate slap in the face. After working tirelessly to prove herself on the court, she now found herself at the center of a racial debate she never asked for. It's not difficult to see how this racial narrative, combined with the physical play she's endured, may have been the final straw for Clark. While she's been the face of the WNBA's growth, she's also become its most controversial figure, largely due to factors beyond her control. From Alyssa Thomas's public accusations to other players using racial tensions to stir controversy, Clark is caught in a political and racial firestorm that could be pushing her to leave the league altogether. In her press conference, Clark didn't directly address the racial allegations, but she made it clear she's had enough. "I need a reset. I need to get away from all of this," she said. Many speculate that this reset could involve a move to Europe, where she could focus on her game without the external pressures that have consumed her WNBA experience.
Basketball was something I absolutely loved to do, but there was a lot of other things I had to have done in my life, whether it was school, whether it was emptying the dishwasher or taking out the trash. I had chores, it stunk. I think it'll definitely be a little bit of an adjustment period for myself, not really, having to do that so much. I woke up yesterday and I'm I don't know what I'm gonna really do. So it's gonna be nice though. I think getting out of the spotlight and just getting to live my life and do things that I wanna do, and not have to sit and I love talking to all of you, but it's gonna be nice to not have to sit in front of a microphone.
Europe could offer Clark the chance to play in a league with a different focus and potentially a more balanced environment, free from the racial tensions that have started to define her WNBA journey. Clark's possible move to Europe isn't just a personal decision, it's a potential disaster for the WNBA. Since joining the league, Clark has transformed the Fever into a money-making machine. Attendance for Indiana games skyrocketed by 400%, ticket sales surged by 60%, and her jersey became the top seller in league history. Her games drew millions of viewers, eclipsing even matchups featuring other WNBA stars like Breanna Stewart and A'ja Wilson. Clark wasn't just a player, she was the league's main attraction. Losing her would be a financial and public relations nightmare for the WNBA. With Clark considering an exit, the league is staring down the barrel of losing its biggest draw and, potentially, its new fan base. But beyond the economic impact, Clark's departure would expose the deep issues that have been festering within the WNBA. Race, politics, and the struggle for equality within a league that has long prided itself on inclusivity. Clark leaving the WNBA would be a signal that the league isn't ready to protect and nurture its top talent. It could also set a dangerous precedent for other players who feel unsupported or unfairly targeted. If the WNBA can't resolve the tension brewing within its ranks, more players may begin to look elsewhere. But for now, all eyes are on Clark. Will she pack her bags and head to Europe? If she does, it won't just be a career shift. It will be a turning point for the WNBA. What do you think? Is Caitlin Clark justified in considering a move to Europe? Let me know in the comments below.